was a video game originally developed for the Atari Jaguar in 1995. Rayman was unique in the fact that the character was conceived, created, and designed by a French video game designer named Michel Ancel, where normally the industry is known for its American and Japanese dominance. Rayman at the time was also known for being an alternative character. Besides his French background, the game in which Rayman was first introduced was for the Atari Jaguar console. While a strong console, it did not last long due to competition and other related issues from Nintendo and Sega. Rayman was also supposed to have an athletic build, but during the conceiving stages of the game, the developers couldn't exactly make the character the way they wanted, so he was later depicted without limbs, but having a head, body, hands, and feet. The wild and early to mid-90s feel for the character was summed up in the original game. The Great Protoon maintained balance and order throughout a valley which is depicted as that of Rayman's homeworld. One day, the evil Mr. Dark steals the Great Protoon, leaving the electrons, whom are small, who gravitate around it vulnerable, naturally being captured by Mr. Dark. Bettilla the Fairy, a guardian of the Great Protoon, interacts with Rayman to give him magical powers to aid him in his quest. Throughout the story, Rayman encounters characters and enemies and does plenty of flamboyant actions to complete the quest to save the Great Platoon and return balance to the world and saving the electrons. What's interesting about Rayman is that at the time it was considered a very beautifully animated and designed game, the details of which were fresh and new. The story itself was considered average at best by critics and reviewers. Rayman as a character was nothing by many accounts. The original game went from personal computer to later consoles before the Jaguar had enough gaming processing power to handle the game in a way that the developers desired. Rayman 2: The Great Escape was released in 1998 with a completely new story with few details that connected it to the original. Once again, critics applauded the visual aspects of the game, but commented that gameplay and story were nothing unique and very easy to forget. Rayman 2 was also the last game in which Michel Ancel had majority control over. Rayman 3: Hoodlum Havoc was released in 2003. It would be the last video game of the Rayman franchise for nearly a decade until Rayman Origins was released in 2011. As always, the visual appeal of the Rayman games gave it widespread attention, but despite the praise for the artistic aspects of the game, it did not sell commercially well during its original release, and data obtained show that the game sold below expectations just at the end of its first month of sales. Much like the title of the game, Rayman Origins sought to clarify and clean up the inconsistent details of the character of Rayman, as Rayman Origins retroactively erased the prior game's stories and details for the character. The reason being that there were conflicting accounts of the origins of Rayman. The original game had the developers consider a story in which a 10-year-old boy named Jimmy created a world called Here It's Cool inside his computer and became Rayman once he was sucked into it through his computer screen. The idea was abandoned. With the official game released, his origin wasn't technically mentioned, although he was considered an established and well-known hero on his homeworld at the beginning of the game. The sequel mentions that he first appeared prior to the events of the original game. In this version, he's discovered by a fisherman who for some reason has never encountered his species before, but later earned the respect of the people by defeating Mr. Dark at the end of the first game. Rayman Origins had him being that of a magical creature created by Bettilla the Fairy from the first game. Rayman Legends was released in 2013, now following the new storyline established by Rayman Origins. The game received widespread acclaim of the visual design, level appeal, music, and gameplay, but as typical of the Rayman games, data showed that the game had weak sales upon release, but later made a small profit just over a year after it had been released. Originally, the Rabbids were characters from the Rayman games, but due to their widespread appeal internationally, they soon became more popular than the character Rayman himself. The first game, called Rayman Raving Rabbids, was released for the Nintendo Wii in 2006. Sequels would be made in 2007, Rayman Raving Rabbids 2. 2008, Rayman Raving Rabbids TV Party. This was the last game to have Rayman depicted in the game title, and in 2009 with Rabbids Go Home. From this game onwards, the Raving Rabbids were put into their own franchise. Consistent Rabbid games were released in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2016, and even 2017, cooperating with Mario in Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which was seen as a reinvigorating of the franchise by having a crossover with the iconic Super Mario series. Commentators have said that it's ironic that the Rabbids have had so much success where Rayman, the origin of the Raving Rabbids, isn't taken seriously by multiple generations of gamers and critics. Sometimes a character can be forgotten, even though visually they were impressive, but nothing much else than this.